Hello grade 10, so welcome back to another video. So in today's video we'll be doing socio-economic issues. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, if you are looking for a tutor or somebody to assist you in mathematics, business studies, physical science or economics, we have a WhatsApp group whereby you get exclusive videos, notes and question paper to help you pass that subject. Now, without wasting any more of your time, let's get into it. So socioeconomic issues are issues faced by a society or a country. So we call them the socioeconomic issues, such as inclusivity, unemployment, inequality and poverty, HIV and AIDS, gambling, violence, labor disputes and political disturbance, counterfeiting, imitations, piracy and crime. So those are the issues that affect societies at large. So for the first one, we're going to be looking at, for unit 1, we will do poverty, inequality, inclusivity, unemployment and HIV and AIDS. So they are classified under as the same problem. Okay, now, when we're talking about inclusivity and poverty, inclusivity is the degree to which people do not have the same opportunities and are treated differently because of their social status. So, because somebody comes from a certain neighborhood, we treat them in a different way than somebody who comes from a disadvantaged neighborhood. It can be also because of color, or it can be because of gender, where you find that a certain gender is given more preference than the other without reasons. Like, let's say in a workplace there are more men and that company is trying to hire more women, that and in they decide to advertise posts, maybe 5 posts, and like this 5 posts will just prioritizing women. That is not inequality. Okay, they are trying to bridge the gap so that there must not be inequality between men and women in that workplace. So it's when they just favor a certain gender over the other. That is inequality, creating inequality, or a certain race over the other races. So inequality leads to the rich becoming richer and the poor becoming poorer. So if you keep not employing people because they do not even have skills, people who don't have skills end up not having skills more. But if as a business you take initiative, train people and give them a job, you are curbing inequality gap. Okay, making sure that it's narrow than it is now. So inequality is a problem in society, and poverty also is the state in which people have little or no money to buy their basic needs, including lack of proper housing, clean water, proper sanitation, electricity, transport, and a shortage of cash. So those are the things that also causes poverty when someone is in a poverty state. So sometimes in section A, they might give you a word and say the state in which people have little or no money to buy their basic needs, including lack of proper housing, clean water, proper sanitation, electricity, transport, and a shortage of cash. And then you have to give one word for that. So it's very important that you know what is the meaning of poverty, what is the meaning of employment, being unemployed as well. So people in poverty usually have poor living condition, hunger, and increased susceptibility diseases. So those are a clear explanation of inequality and poverty. So impact of quality of poverty and inequality on businesses. How does inequality and poverty impact businesses negatively? So because it's a socioeconomic issue, we look at the negative side of these issues in towards businesses. So people do not have enough money to live on and cannot participate fully in the economy because there's inequality that, and so this inequality leads to more poverty. Okay, and poverty and inequality create a cycle where parents cannot afford to supply their children with good education, which means that they will grow up in poverty and remain in poverty because of lack of education, skills, job opportunities, and finance. People who are less privileged are more prone to also have their next generation being disadvantaged or underprivileged. So it's very important to break the cycle of poverty. So this ultimately leads to a culture of crime and violence. If children do not have hope for the future, that something better will come or they can have a better life, they opt for what? Violence and crime. Violence is a manifestation of somebody who's frustrated. So they'll end up committing crime. They will end up being violent. What is violent in the house? The mother is beating the father is beating the mother and the children. There's so much abuses that are going on in families that you know. So as a result of poverty, businesses are targets of shoplifting, theft, burglary, and corruption. So poverty makes businesses vulnerable, okay, because they are more prone to be attacked by outside people. So this gives rise to industries such as security services and increasing business expense. Security increases business expense, okay, because the company has to protect itself from this crime that increases as a result of poverty and inequality. So let's talk about inclusivity. Inclusivity is the opposite of exclusivity. Okay, so if we include, we are trying to limit or narrow inequality because we are including everybody. So inclusivity means giving everyone opportunities without discriminating on the basis of age, race, gender, sexual orientation, disabilities, or HIV status. So as you can see that inclusivity is an opposite of inequality. And you see, inclusivity is equality. Okay, so aims of inclusivity is to make the best use of all human resources in an organization, to make use of people's different talents and skills, and to decrease inequality. So to increase education and training and to decrease poverty. So remember, a measure that can be used to decrease poverty and inequality is inclusivity. Now we're going to talk about the efforts to create an inclusive workplace. If you are trying to create an inclusive workplace, or what businesses do to create an inclusive workplace, is that the client base of organizations increases and become representatives of the wider community. So the organizations need to appoint people who can talk to and service clients. To what? Create an inclusive workforce. So through this, a more inclusive workforce is created. To speed up the process, the government approved the Employment Equity Act, which requires that employees must represent the wider community in terms of race, gender, and disability. So which means different genders, different even people who are disabled, and people of different races should be represented in each organizations. That's why the Employment Equity Act was introduced. Now let's talk about unemployment. What is the definition of unemployment? It is the condition where people want to work, can work, but cannot find work. So that is unemployment. You want to work, you can work, but cannot find work. You are unemployed. Okay, unemployment is the result of lack of skills and the wrong skills or a downturn in the economy. So unemployment can cause certain problems, okay, and unproductive labor force produces less than it should. So it's very good that the labor force is productive, but when the labor force is not productive, then the country produces less. So this is the result of too little or poor training, and leads to tension between employer and employees, low profits, and stress for the employee, because what? People are not skilled, so it's hard for businesses to get skilled workers. So the impact of unemployment is that unemployment lowers the standard of living of a country. If there's too many people unemployed in a country, the standard of living goes down. It also causes an increase in corruption, poverty, crime, suicide rates in society. So it's very important that the government try by all means to create jobs so that people do not have to commit suicide, see crime as a way to solve their problems. So this is HIV and AIDS. HIV and AIDS is an incurable disease transferred by means of body fluids such as blood and semen. So the impact of HIV and AIDS on businesses. How does HIV and AIDS impact business? People with HIV and AIDS, they are said to cause a problem to the business. So the young and economically active people become HIV positive. So when they're HIV positive, treatment is possible, but people take long to recover, especially when you recovered your HIV status maybe at a critical stage, okay, leading to high absenteeism from work. An HIV positive person does not get well completely and slowly becomes weaker. This causes the productivity of the business to be lower as people with HIV and AIDS work slower because of lack of energy. But it's not like that, always like that in most cases. When they have recovered, they've taken the medication, they are well. But before they get there, they can cause problems to the businesses. They can be absent and all that. So the skilled labor force, the skilled labor force to be reduced due to loss of lives. Some people pass away because they don't want to accept their HIV status. The business to spend more money on skills training to replace the employee they lost. So, still on contemporary socioeconomic issues, we have piracy, which is unit 2, piracy, counterfeiting, and bootlegging. So, let's talk about piracy. Piracy is an illegal act of copying or reproducing someone else's work and producing it as your own. That is what piracy. And then we have counterfeiting and imitations. That is copies of products made without the consent of the creator with the intent of passing them as the real product. So you make copies of someone's thing and sell it as if you are selling for that person who created that thing. Okay? That is the difference. So you should know piracy is an illegal, it's copying or reproducing someone's work and producing it as your own. And then counterfeiting and imitation is copies of products made without the consent of the creator and with the intent of passing them as the real product. And then bootlegging is the production and illegal selling of alcohol produced informally. So people are able to do their own illegal alcohol in backyards and say, no, this is and bottle it as if it's alcohol by a reputable brand, while it's not. It's just an imitation of it. That's bootlegging. So relationship between piracy and copyright. Okay, so content of publication or recordings are the intellectual property of the people who create them. So if you create anything, that is your property. You have a property right to that thing. If you invent something, you have a property right to it. That's why you have to register it so that nobody else can copy you. So strict laws protect copyrights and punishment for transgression is severe. So anyone who copies someone's thing, if they are found guilty, their punishment is severe. So patent laws protect new inventions and intellectual properties. So protection for 7 years, usually to allow recouping investments. So trademarks are used by businesses to identify themselves and their products. So a trademark has the sign TM after it has evidence that the name is trademarked. So for trademark, it's for signs. When you see the sign of KFC, McDonald's, F&B, and all those businesses, those are trademarks. But copyright is the exclusive rights given to a creator of original work, including the right to change, copy, or distribute the work, and applies to books. You see, copyright is for books, music, maps, drama production, photographs, drawing, paintings, and computer programs. So trademark is just for a sign. If you have a sign and you copyright it, or a saying or whatever, or a short slogan, it's also part of trademark. But copyright is the work, a complete work, music, maps, books, dramas, productions, and so on. So how do piracy, counterfeiting, bootlegging affect business operations? Businesses will not invest or invent if they are not protected. So it's very important that businesses are protected by people who take part in piracy, counterfeiting, and bootlegging. So if they are not protected, they will not, if they do not feel protected, they will not invent and invest. So business and individual lose out on profit because of that. If somebody go and sell something that you took time to think about, produce, and perfect, and money was involved in that, it's heartbreaking. So they lose on profit. If businesses are not protected by law, they will not invest in new businesses and product ideas. So consumers are protected. Anti-piracy law protects consumers from counterfeit products. So if you have bought something, you thought it was original, and you just find out that it's not, you can actually sue the person that sold it to you. So anti-piracy laws means consumers can trust what they buy and pay is what name suggests. So counterfeit medicine food can pose a risk to customers who are unable to identify ingredients. So you need to buy original. Criminals selling counterfeits are stealing investments and ideas from original makers. So do not support piracy. And then a pirate product reduces the value of genuine articles. And bootlegging is similar with added danger, as bootlegging liquor can be poisonous. So someone creating booze in their backyard, that is insane. And then we're going to talk about gambling, violence, and crime. I think this is the last unit on this chapter. So gambling is involved in a game of change in which a person risks losing or gaining money to other possessions. Examples include lotto tickets, scratch cards, slots machine, horse racing, and internet gambling. If you are enjoying this video this far, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe, comment, and for us to help with your academic journey, these are the details. You can send an email or a WhatsApp to be added to the group in order for you to get exclusive videos, notes, question papers, and help you in whatever that you are stuck in at school. And now we're going to talk about illegal gambling. So this is the definition of a gambling, and then there's illegal gambling. Illegal gambling is internet gambling. It is sometimes linked to organized crime, animal fighting, and unlicensed operations offering gambling to the public. Those are illegal gamblings. So let's talk about pyramid schemes also. It's a deposit-taking business promising high interest returns to convince people to place money on the scheme. People at the top of the scheme make money illegally, where they're like, oh, invest, you will get 50% back, in 50% interest on this. That is a pyramid scheme. And then money laundering is criminal invest dirty and declared profits from crimes in illegal businesses so that the money comes clean. The money becomes clean. So you are a criminal and you also have a tuck shop. So you just been involved in a cash heist. You take the money from the cash heist, put it in the business as if the business is the one that is making these profits. So that is how they clean the money. The dirty money puts in a legit business, comes out as if the business is the one that created the money, made the money. And then 4, we have violence and crime. So violence includes domestic violence, which is beating each other, emotional violence or abuse, violence during robberies and assaults, murder, rape, violence in the workplace. So domestic violence, an extreme form of aggression, that is domestic violence. The use of physical force with intention to cause injury, damage, or death, that is domestic violence, where people are beating each other up. So employees can call in sick and miss work because of injuries. That's how it affects businesses. And employees who fear violence against their family stay off work. So emotional violence, this includes treating other people in ways that makes them afraid, threatened, ashamed, or not able to control what is done to them. It happens as well in the workplace where people are intimidated by their bosses or their superiors. So, an employee who is subjected to emotional violence at home may lose concentration, and employees subject to emotional violence lack self-confidence, become timid, and are less able to develop fully at work. And then we have violence in the workplace. Theft, assault, bribery, corruption can lead to violence in the workplace. So stress in the workplace to meet deadlines, theft, bribery, and corruption can cause violence. Another example is xenophobic attacks on immigrant workers. So violence is dismissible offense. It's a dismissible offense. If you create any form of violence in the workplace, you can be dismissed immediately. Number 5, we have crime. Definition of crime is any unlawful, harmful act related to loss of goods in a business due to burglary, robberies, theft, corruptions, and hijackings. Theft is the unlawful taking of someone else's property to make it your own. That is a crime. Loss of goods in a business can happen as a result of burglary, shoplifting, customer theft, and employee theft. So crime is bad, is taking someone's thing that you didn't ask permission for. So impact of crime on businesses is that employees fear to be robbed on payday and take off leave, leading to loss of productivity. So every day when they have to be paid, they have to knock off early so that they cannot be robbed, because criminals are looking and targeting them to see that now they have cash, we can go and extract money from our cash cows. So the crime of murder takes away skilled labor, causes mourning, and therefore a slower production rate. And again, rape leads to time taken off for counseling, hospitalization, and court cases. And then another impact is that businesses try to protect themselves against crime by having secure premises, installing burglary bars, security systems, and security guards. So businesses take out insurance to cover themselves against possible risks of losing assets such as stock and fixed assets. So these are all the impact that crime has on businesses. Now these businesses have to go through such strains, and all of the above increase cost of the business, which affect profits. Crime disrupts business activities and productivity. I thought unit 3 was the last, but it turns out unit 4 is the last one. So we have strikes, labor disputes, and political disturbance. What is a strike? A strike is a collective refusal of employees to work because of an issue in the workplace aimed at forcing the employer to give in to demands. So that is definition of strike. You can be given that a collective refusal of employees to work because of an issue in the workplace aimed at forcing the employer to get into demand, and they say give one word. So you need to know the definition of strike as well. Employers lose on production but can enforce the no work, no pay rule. Employers fear for survival of the business. So strikes often turn violent when strikers attack workers who are not taking part, yet gaining in the benefit of the strike. So if their colleagues are striking and you're not striking, you can be attacked for that. It's illegal though, they're not supposed to do that. It's everybody has a choice whether to join a trade union or not. Nobody should be forced. So employees can get in other workers to continue production, and strikers often attack such workers who go to work when they are striking. And it's their right not to strike. We have lockout. Actions by the employer to prevent striking workers from coming into the workplace to prevent damage. That is a lockout. And then go slows are a form of industrial actions where employees work at a much slower pace than usual. So lockout is when the employer locks the employees out, because if they come and strike inside the business premises, they will damage the property. And then a go slow is when the employees decides to work slow. If they produce 10 loaves of bread in an hour, then they will say in an hour we'll just produce 4, so that we will make our boss give in to our demands. That is the end. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Until the next video next week, Monday.